Hello, hello, and welcome back to my channel. So, we are first going to start off with question number 2. We're taking a look at solving the following by using the quadratic formula. Now, before we start with this, we probably should write down the formula. I also am going to sing the song for you here, so here it goes.
The quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Alright, so there you go. It is to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. So we are going to get this equation set equal to 0 because it's a quadratic. How do I know it's a quadratic? Because of the x squared. So I have x squared minus 6x. Going to bring over the 15. Subtract over the 15. All set equal to 0. Okay, so you need to subtract over the 15 and set it equal to 0. Alright, next order of business, we need to identify what A, B, and C are. So I have A equals 1, B equals negative 6, and I have C equals negative 15. Alright, so we are going to plug directly into our formula. Alright, so I kind of sped up the process here. I have it already written out. I'm going to simplify this a bit. I have x equals 6 plus or minus. You are going to type exactly what is underneath the radical into your calculator. When you do this, you should get the square root of 96 when you put that in directly into your calculator, all over 2. Now, this needs to be simplified completely in simplest radical form, and this will be on your quarterly. We have to break up the square root of 96 into 2 square roots, where one of them is a perfect square. If you do this on the calculator, you will find that 96 breaks down into the square root of 16 and the square root of 6, to which we know the square root of 16 is 4, and that square root just comes along for the ride. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Alright, so I want to clean up what I have here. I have x equals 6 plus or minus. I have the square root of 16 and the square root of 6 breaks down into 4 radical 6 all over 2. Alright, let's split this because we have the plus or minus here in the middle. So I want to split this in half, and I'll just highlight there for you. So we will have x equals 6 plus 4 radical 6 over 2, and I have x equals 6 minus 4 radical 6 over 2. Now, we want to simplify this completely. To simplify this completely, we want to break down the 6, 4, and the 2, because all of these numbers, 6, 4, and 2, are divisible by 2. So I'm going to combine the 6 with the 2, and I'm going to do the 4 with the 2, okay? This is what we were talking about, that heart method here. You leave out the square root of 6, it does not get simplified with the 2. I'll be left with here 3 plus 2 radical 6, and I'll have 3 minus 2 radical 6. Those are my roots. Another word for roots are my zeros. You guys need to know that these values are what crosses on the x-axis. So I might have a root here and a root here. What's highlighted here would be my zeros. Alright, this is the reason why I'm spending so much time having gone over this is because this is a huge question, and it will be on your quarterly exam tomorrow. Let's take a look at another one. Alright, we will quickly take a look at questions 4 and 5. I have which function has zeros of negative 4 and 2. So again, you are looking for where does this cross on the x-axis when x equals negative 4 and when x equals 2. Guys, this is a pure calculator question. You should be graphing all of these. You should be graphing 1 and 3, checking out and seeing. When you graph it, do you have a 0 when x is negative 4? And do you have a 0 when x is 2? Now, I have 2 graphs already here as my multiple choice options, so I'm going to take a look at those first before I start graphing with questions 1 and 3. Or sorry, answer choices 1 and 3. So let's look at answer choice 2. I have a 0 at x equals -2, and I have a 0 at x equals 4. Now, if we look at this answer choice, that does not match what I have. I need to have a 0 at -4, and it has to be at +2. This is the opposite. So let's check out answer choice 4, and then otherwise we're going to have to graph answer choices 1 and 3. So let's look. Here, I have a 0 at x equals -4, and here I have a 0 at x equals 2. Yep, that's going to do it. I didn't even need to look at answer choices 1 and 3. It's got to be answer choice 4. All right, quickly we're going to take a look at question number 5. Question number 5 should be nice and easy. This is already factored for you. All you have to do is t-chart it because it's set equal to 0. That means this here has to equal 0, and this has to equal 0. The only way for them to equal 0 is if we actually set it up. So we have x minus 2 equals 0, and I have x minus a equals 0. You've got to solve for x. So when I add 2 to both sides, I have x equals 2. When I solve for a, I'll get x equals a. So my 2 roots, where this thing is going to cross the x-axis, is at 2 and a. I want to take a look at question number 7 because while it is multiple choice, we're going to treat it as a short answer because there is a question like this on your quarterly that is treated as a short answer question. So let's actually do the math out. And I want to practice again by factoring because that is a question on your test. So let's do this by factoring. If I take the master product, I have -6x squared. I need to break this up. What are 2 numbers that are going to multiply to -6 but adds to -5x? So we have to think. Let's try. -6x and +1x. Does that work? -6x times 1x does get me to -6x squared. And when I add them together, yep, that's going to work. It's going to add to -5x. So we need to break this down. I have x squared minus 6x plus 1x minus 6 equals 0. Now we need to factor the first 2 and then factor out the GCF of the last 2. GCF for the first 2 is just going to be x. I have x times x minus 6. GCF here would be +1. I'm writing +1 because sometimes we forget to include that. And this is what I'm left with. Now, I needed what's inside the parentheses to match, with which they do. I'm left with x plus 1. So I'm going to write this out. I have x plus 1 times x minus 6, and I'm setting this equal to 0. We're finding the zeros, guys. When I t-chart this, we're not done. We are not done. We have to t-chart. When I t-chart this and set each factor equal to 0, I'll figure out what x is. So when I subtract 1 on both sides, I get x equals -1. When I add 6 on both sides, I get x equals 6. Those are my roots. Those are the zeros. This was done algebraically for the purpose of your exam, but if this was multiple choice, guys, you would be going straight to the calc and finding out that these are your zeros. All right, I want to take a look at question number 14. So if I look at 14, I have 4x squared minus 25. Now, this question does require you to know that this is what? Is it a GCF, dots, or is it factor by grouping? You have to know that this is a dots question. That means take the difference, okay? Difference, so there needs to be subtraction of 2 squares. You guys need to know your perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square, and 25 is a perfect square. So, if I write this out using dots, I'll have 2x, because the square root of 4x squared is 2x. I know that the square root of 25 is 5. Now, you have to remember, with dots, we do plus and minus, because the square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. So, your answer for this answer choice should be 3. Now, for those of you that are still confused with factoring, guess what? This is multiple choice. You should be running through every single answer choice to see which is going to match. Now, let's look at answer choice 3, for example. We already know that's the answer, but let's double check. Let's double distribute to make sure this works. Again, we already know it's answer choice 3, but let's double check. Say you're not sure. Let's double distribute this all back. This is using a multiple choice strategy, guys. I'll have 4x squared plus 10x minus 10x minus 25. The numbers in the middle cancel, and I'm left with 4x squared minus 25. Yep, this works. We did it right. All right, let's jump ahead and take a look at question number 18. There will be a system of equations on your exam, so let's take a look at that. So you have to remember your two rules. We have substitution and elimination. I'm going to do elimination for question number 18, letter B. So let's take a look at letter B. All right, so you guys have to look. Look at the numbers you've got here. I've got 5x, 4y, 30, and I have 3x, 9y, and negative 18. So I'm going to look to eliminate x. If I look to eliminate x, what should I multiply top and bottom by? I want you to think about it. I want to eliminate x. What should I multiply top and bottom by? Again, this will be on your test. All right, we should multiply the top by negative 3 and then the bottom by 5. Now, why did I go with negative 3? Why didn't I just go with regular 3? Guys, it's because I want these variables to cancel. If I left that on the top as positive 3, you'll have 15x and then 15x on top and then 15x on bottom. Those will not cancel. By doing this, I am left with negative 15x. We've got to distribute. Minus, let's see, we have minus 12y and distribute all the way over equals 90. Don't forget to distribute throughout. Now we're going to do the bottom one. 5 times 3x is positive 15x. 5 times negative 9y is negative 45y. And then I have 5 times negative 18 happens to also be negative 90. Okay, great. Let's start to do this thing. Let's solve it. So now I need to eliminate my variable. The whole point in this, guys, was find a number in common so that way we can get rid of x. So we found that 5 and 3, they both share 15. So when you multiply the top by negative 3 and the bottom by 5, these are going to cancel. I'm left with negative 57y equals 0. Now guys, don't stop here. You have to solve for y. When I divide both sides by negative 57, I get y equals 0. Okay, I gotta go back though. Plug back in to either the top or the bottom. I'll just go with the top because why not? When I plug back in, we know y is 0. So I have 5x plus 4 times 0 equals negative 30. This goes away because 0 times anything is 0. I have 5x equals negative 30. When I solve for x, I get x equals negative 6. These two things are necessary. You need x and y. That's solving a system. Solving a system of equations, guys, you should be getting an x equals and a y equals. Or you can get infinitely many solutions or no solution, which actually number 18a should have been infinitely many solutions. All right, let's take a look at another question. All right, so 25 is a great question. Let's take a look. I have to get x by itself. There is my inequality. So if I subtract 3 on both sides, I have 1/2 x is less than 2x minus 9. We like to get the variable on the left-hand side, so let's do that. When I subtract 2x on both sides, guys, you can literally just put this in the calculator. What's 1/2 minus 2? You'll get negative 1.5x is less than negative 9. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1.5. Guys, you have to remember when you divide by a negative, the inequality symbol flips. So now I have x is now greater than 6. And that is answer choice 4. Question number 44 is also a good question to take a look at. We have the following. Now guys, these equality properties are really important. There's one on every single Regents exam, at least one of these has come up. So let's see what we're looking at here. And I'm going to highlight the differences. Here we have her first step. We have 4 times 3x squared plus 2x minus 9 is equal to 8x squared plus 7. Here we have a quadratic. And in her next step, here, let's see, I'm going to highlight this for you guys. There's the first step. There's the second step. What are the differences? And if you want to write this out, oops, that way it's line by line. So here's the first line. That way you can really compare and see what's going on. And we have this equals 8x squared plus 7. I'm going to write the next line right below it. And you guys will tell me, what do you see? What happened? Okay, so guys, if you look at this line by line, notice that this -9 is no longer in the second line, and this 7 became a 16. So what did we have to do? That 9 had to be added to both sides. So we are looking at addition. If I added by 9 on both sides, that's our addition property of equality. You guys need to know your properties. If this had plus 9, then you would have subtracted the 9 on both sides, and then that would have been your subtraction property of equality. Very important stuff I'm going over here. All right, so I want to take a look at 2 questions that are not on the review packet. I'm just going to throw them up on my interactive whiteboard here. All right, so again, I just made this up, and I'm just going to read out loud what my directions would be. I would ask for you to write this in standard form and expressed as a trinomial, meaning 3 terms. So let's start off with completing order of operations. You guys need to know you cannot distribute the 2 the way I just displayed. That is a big no. You cannot do that. That 2 as your exponent means the number of copies. So I have 2 copies of x plus 3. Now, I can distribute that negative into everything. I'll have minus 7x, minus 4, and bring down the plus 1. We need to complete a double distribution here. So let's do it. Leave that 2 alone. I'll have 2 times. I have x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. Everything else over here gets brought along for the ride. Minus 7x. And while I'm at it, I might as well combine like terms. That should be a minus 3. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to combine what's inside here. So I have 2 times x squared plus 6x plus 9 minus 7x minus 3. Now, let's actually distribute the 2 into everything. I'll have 2x squared plus 12x plus 18 minus 7x minus 3. All right, so let's just clean this up a bit. When I clean this up, I'll bring down that 2x squared. My positive 12x and my negative 7x results in a plus 5x. And I have positive 18 and negative 3. That will result in plus 15. This is your answer written in standard form. Again, question not on the review packet, but I'm just adding it in to help you guys out. I'm going to look at another question that's not on the review packet, but again, will be a helpful tool for you guys for tomorrow. All right, so here's my next question, and I want you guys to solve this by using the quadratic formula. Now, I already sang the song for you before, so I'm just going to rewrite the formula. Over here in green, we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so let's start to actually do this. And you are going to express your answer in simplest radical form. Very important here, guys. You got to simplify it completely. So let's do it. I'm going to replace a, b, and c with my following values. A is just going to be 1. B is negative 6. And c is positive 4. So let's see what happens when I put this in the formula. I'm just going to make this a little smaller so we have some room. I have x equals negative 6. Then we have plus or minus the square root. I have negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4 all over 2 times 1. Now, we're going to simplify this a little bit. So we have negative 6 is positive 6 plus or minus square root. Guys, please remember, you should just be putting what's inside the parentheses in the calc, not the radical. When you put that in the calculator, you should end up getting 20, and that's all being divided by 2. Now, this is not in simplest radical form. The square root of 20 can be broken up into what? I need you guys to think about this. Now, 2 and 10 would not work. We have to break this up into the square root. You got it. 4 and 5. What's the square root of 4? 4 is our perfect square. Good. The square root of 4 is just 2. So I have 2 radical 5. This whole thing, guys, replaces this. So I'm going to rewrite this. I have x equals 6 plus or minus 2 radical 5 all over 2. I'm going to combine my whole numbers, what's outside the radical. So I'm going to complete the heart method here, and I'm going to complete the heart method here. Let's write this out. I have x equals 6 divided by 2 is 3, plus or minus. 2 divided by 2 is 1, radical 5. My answers, because of this plus or minus in the middle, results in x equals 3 plus radical 5, x equals 3 minus radical 5. Alright, I really hope this YouTube video was helpful as you guys prepare for your exam tomorrow. Any questions, please send me a message on the Remind app, and hopefully you like and subscribe. Give me some feedback. Alright, hope you guys have a good night. Bye-bye.